You know, we talk a lot about self-defense. I think that's important to you and it's important to me, but I do want to acknowledge that there are a lot of people studying martial arts not ever imagining being in a real fight. Maybe all the things that they're doing, real fight maybe sixth or seventh on the list. They spend their day chained to a tin desk, they're shuffling papers around, they're meeting clients. Oh gosh, a couple nights a week I go to the dojo and I just let it all rip out. It's a lot of fun. I'm with friends, some kind of crazy friends. We all love each other and I'm just enjoying the experience of this martial art, regardless of whether it's practical or not. There could be that person who's not as committed to self-defense as you and I would be.
When I used to buy your books, may I see one? This book, the Wisdom from the Ninja Village of the Cold Moon. I mean, the poetry in here is awe-inspiring. Don't you think that these books that were so successful, and even this new one, How to Own Your World, which I've just started reading again for the 100th time, how important is the fantasy aspect of martial arts? You know, the ninja is what attracted me. When I saw Shogun, I wanted to be Mifune. I wanted to be Richard Chamberlain. I wanted to marry Mariko. You got Rumiko. How important is that to attract someone to the martial arts?
Well, again, I think it depends on the individual.
Yeah.
Some people, like if they're maybe police or prison guard, they may think of this as a career enhancement. No, I really need to know how to handle myself better, not get emotionally hooked, learn the so maybe the fantasy is not so important to that person. They may not want to learn how to use a sword. I'm never going to use a sword. I'm not interested in that. Not ever going to use a gun. We're not allowed to have guns. Okay. But I think for the average individual, I like to think of the fantasy as, you know, kind of part of the formula. It's got to be inspiring. So, I mean, I think, here's Ninja Volume 6. Okay, lots of techniques, very practical. Sometimes I'm in a gi, sometimes I'm just in a t-shirt against the, it's very practical. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. If you're looking for practical self-defense, this is it. Yeah, but it's also got this mystique. So when I wrote this book, I would put stories in the beginning of the chapters, and a lot of times I was the butt of the joke of the story. So people could kind of identify, well, he's not like some grandiose, arrogant guy. He's poking fun of himself, but he's teaching us what he learned. And so I think that familiarizes that fantasy. But so many people I talk to said, oh God, I read these books and I just wanted to go to Japan. Nobody says this, but they're thinking, I want to be Stephen Hayes.
Yeah.
I want to be Stephen Hayes. And of course they can't anymore. But that original journey of mine where I found 15 people in this obscure little dojo in Noda City, Japan. That is heady stuff. Heady stuff. And as we discussed before, I think there is this self-discovery that's important. And again, as we said, it's not religion or things that you have to swear allegiance to. They're just considerations. 14-point code of mindful action. It's a code of ethics. I tease people. I say, well, it just keeps you out of jail. Keeps you out of jail. And but then there's an 8-fold aspect of personal development where you really are questioning, how did I communicate that to this person? Is there a more effective way to communicate that? Is there a more effective way to make my presence known? How do I groom myself? My posture, I'm here like this, and or am I aggressively, how's my posture? All these 8-fold aspects where we can look and hopefully move ahead. And there's 6 points of how to be a hero. If you want to be a hero, you got to observe these 6 things, not 5, but all 6. And it's fun. It's a challenge. And I think the 4th area is just kind of makes you more curious about life in general. We're so busy, you know. He's busy with his job, and nowadays mom is busy with her job. You know, you have to have 2 incomes to just make it in this insane economy. And kids come home, and God, it's now 6:45, and dude, let's order a pizza. And you know, then junk piles up in the house, and junk piles up in our body and our head. We don't have time to just sit on the deck and enjoy a sunset. No, just simplify. Just go through a junk drawer. Why do I have all these plastic forks and spoons in these little plastic envelope things? You know, well, we got it when we got Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we didn't get rid of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need it. Same thing with situations in your life. You know, just get rid of that. You've outgrown it. And I mean, even people, you know, there's a certain point where, no, I've kind of outgrown you. You want to pull me backwards. I want to move forward. It's kind of time to move on. Anyway, so those 4 aspects: practical self-defense, the fantasy. I think there's a place for, you know, reality-based martial arts, maybe a fantasy-based martial art too. You know?
I believe to embrace the full package of martial arts that we need to learn, this is my opinion, firearms. It's a modern weapon. So when I go to the range, I need to know how to operate a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun. It's a modern weapon. Much more likely we're going to run into that or a knife than a sword. What do you say? I have my own approach. Sometimes you get the gun martial art debate guys. You get the guy that says, well, you can throw your stars all you want. I'm just going to grab my 1911 and blow you away. I don't need to learn the physical. I have my Glock. I don't need to learn that. It's junk. It's stupid, some say. I have my guns. I'm a gun guy. You're out there doing jumping roofs and stuff. Now, I know one man, and he runs a academy out of Westchester, and what he's decided to do, because he's a martial artist, is have a gun range and martial arts in the same building. Brilliant! He's trying to gap this ridiculous fight that we have between gun guys and martial art guys. How can you call yourself a martial artist and not know modern weapons? How can you be a gun self-defense advocate and not know martial arts? They are intertwined, in my opinion. They are inexplicably woven together. Again, if the ninja shinobi lived now, they would have firearms, and did then. Why do you believe there's a gun gap, and how do we bridge that? Am I wrong to think that it's just another part of the tree? It's just another branch. You need to know sword, you need to know unarmed combat, you need to know tactics, you need to know firearms. Do you find that your gun friends joke with you about their weapons? I don't need to learn how to do a ganseki nage when I can just blow you away with a gun. How do we bridge the gap? I think it's getting a little bit better. I think it has improved over the years, but what's your opinion on that subject?
Well, I think, you know, there's an old saying with the samurai: if you draw your sword, you got to draw blood. Now, that was just a way of saying, don't draw your sword if you're not willing to cut somebody. And the same thing with a gun. You know, if I'm confronted by some guy who's not a criminal, not going to rob me or whatever, but he gets mad at me and he pulls his gun on me, I'm unarmed. Are you going to murder me? You going to murder me and go to prison or maybe be executed? Come on, pal. I'm not afraid of that gun. I don't think you're going to murder me unarmed. Now this person, well, I got a gun. Yeah, are you going to murder me? No. So I think if we're working with guns, maybe the first thing to teach is don't draw your gun unless you're willing to put a hole in somebody. Oh, okay, well, he has a gun. or he's coming at me with a machete, or wow, I am willing to put a hole in him to protect my life. So that'd be the beginning gun lesson. Now I think some martial artists are kidding themselves about the relationship with guns. Others don't know enough about guns to how you defend against a gun, or how you keep a gun from being taken away from you. And they studied with their old sensei in Okinawa, where they have no guns at all, and the gun isn't an issue, and so they don't have techniques. There are all kinds of excuses, but if you're studying a practical martial art, you ought to at least know how to turn the safety on and off. You ought to at least know.
Which most people don't.
No. You align the barrel with where you're shooting. How to hold the pistol with your finger off the trigger until the last minute. I mean, just little basic things like that. If it's a practical martial art. I will say this though. We offered some little seminars in handguns when I did have a martial arts school for all those years. Very little interest.
Why do you think, now reflecting back?
Well, maybe those people were involved more for the fun or the fantasy or the physical activity, or they weren't really committed to a fully self-defense, or they may have made a decision, I'm not a gun guy. And so I'm not interested in guns because I'm never going to be a gun guy.
We have a unique position being in America, which is a gun country with the Second Amendment, and so the rest of the world probably looks at us like nut jobs most of the time with how much we put guns up here. I wouldn't have it any other way. By the way, I wouldn't live in any other country. I love this place because it gives you the freedom to choose and to defend yourself if you have to. I just tell people, look, if you're interested in that subject, I'm not a gun expert by any means. I send them to go to the guys at the range. They know what they're doing. They breathe and eat this. If you want to learn firearm safety, go to them. I know something about it, but nothing like them. I'm like a yellow belt in firearms versus the black belt guy that runs the range. I do believe that, like you said, the person should at least know how to operate a firearm in America. If you live in Britain or somewhere where they're not allowed, that would not be something you would waste your time with, probably. But if I live in America, I need to know how to load the magazine, how to put it in, how to eject it. A lot of people can't even pull the slide back. That's a skill set, just like we do with our taijutsu. You understand that a martial art is a diminishing skill. If you don't practice it, it goes down quickly, within months. Same thing with firearms. We need to learn we need to go to that range. Again, I've seen improvement between the martial arts and the gun guys because I think they understand that it's the same. It's just a question of where you want to focus your intention. Do you want to be the gun guy, the martial art guy? Do you want to be a both? I believe, this is my opinion, that you need to be well-rounded in every weapon you can get your hands on. That's why when people say, well, you work with swords, how stupid. Well, you got to get to your gun. And if you don't get to it, I'm going to kill you 100 different ways. So you can't just tell me the gun is the answer. What if it jams? What if you drop it? You don't blade yourself. I'm going to sweep your leg and I'm going to knock your teeth out and I'm going to beat you with your own gun. So you better know martial arts. Sometimes you just have to tell them like that. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right, But the higher level smart people in either industry, martial arts or firearms, they understand each other and they never badmouth the others. They understand, look, we're all in this together. You got your good guys and your bad guys. What's your weapon of choice? But we're all in the same team of defending life, health, happiness. I just believe that so strongly.
You come from a practical self-defense orientation, so you would think that. But there are so many martial arts schools that it's an activity. We do Shotokan karate. We do these kind of things that if you got a lucky shot in a self-defense, you might hit somebody in the liver and fold them over, but it's not really designed
Yeah.
for self-defense. It's a character building activity. It's a fitness activity, blow it out activity. It's a let the lion loose roar activity. It's all of these things that enhance a life. Maybe it's too much of a stretch to go to a gun for that kind of person.
Do you yourself train with firearms? I know you used to quite a bit. Do you still believe that that's a necessary thing to keep up with?
Well, I do. I train with modern firearms, and then just as a fun hobby, I have 120-year-old guns, single action, cowboy
Wow, yeah, like
shooting.
Colts and things.
Yeah, 6-shooters and saddle guns and little sawed-off shotgun, stagecoach, and I do that just for fun.
Yeah.
But also modern firearms. Yeah, it's just kind of a enjoyable outgrowth of my interest in martial arts.
And it goes back to the fantasy part of you as a child watching Lassie and Hopalong Kid and all those. I mean, that's still in you as it is in me. We have to have a little bit of the fantasy left or it becomes very boring, right? You have to have I'm sure if you put out a book on ninjutsu now or Toshindo, you're not going to be in a mask. It might be a modern mask, but it's not going to be the Shinobi Shozoku or anything. But I do believe that fantasy part, I still watch Shogun and enjoy it and want to be in that almost 50 years later. And I'm sure you with your cowboy stuff. I think you have to hold on to that fantasy part in order to stay involved or it just becomes too sterile.
I think that's a great way to put it. It just becomes sterile. And as I say, if I'm a cop, if I'm a prison guard, if I'm military investigation or intelligence, I might need to see what's the latest thing. Yeah. I might need training based on state laws changing. Oh, we used to put people in strangleholds. Yeah, I can't do that anymore. Oh, okay, so what do we do now? It's very sterile, but it's a practical. It's just like my son-in-law works for a major accounting firm. So every year, they change all the tax laws.
Yeah.
And so they got to send them back for retraining. It's the same thing, we're getting the most we can in the least amount of time, and then we're going to go back and put it into action.
Mr. Hayes, what do you think about those who deny the historicity of Hatsumi Sensei and the Takamatsu Den? There are people making a living off there saying, well, they're not showing me the scrolls, they're just claiming to be the Grandmaster and they're connected to the Togakure Ryu. Do you have any opinions on that? Do you think there's any merit to it? I have a small opinion that is any person who argues, I think is a good thing. I think it's good to have argument and, hey, let's debate this. I think that's healthy in anything. But do you think there's legitimacy to any of those claims, or is it, I want to hear your point on that.
Well, most of the people who claim that this is not real have never trained.
Yeah.
They've never trained. I was trained in the 70s. I saw these written documents. I saw techniques that were totally unique. Not jujitsu, not aikijutsu, not karate. No, these were totally unique approaches for escape and evasion, which a ninja would need. I saw that. Nobody could have made such a thing up, in my view. I think a lot of these naysayers, and I'll put it in blunt terms, they're ninnies. They're just ninnies. They are the total opposite of the fantasy. They can't imagine what it would be like in the early 1900s to learn a martial art. I mean, Japan, there were like huge factions saying, we don't need martial arts anymore. We got guns. You can take field hand farm boys, 16 years old, couple of months, you train them to be shooters. Takes years to teach them how to use a sword. And then you had other people arguing that, yeah, but if you just teach them the military stuff, you're not developing the human being who's going to make decisions. So we're going to take the martial arts and we're going to make them character building. We're going to form schools around martial arts as character building. The stronger you are, the more compassionate, the more masculine in a very healthy way you are. You're a protector. You're taking care of people. Who can tell what was going on in a Takamatsu's life? It was not like today where, things are at leisure and scrolls may have burned up in a temple fire, started by an enemy that, there were times in Takamatsu's life where he was like politically on the outside. There were other people. Takamatsu came from a family that had a factory in Kobe. But there was another guy who came from an aristocratic family, and the aristocrats used to sponsor the dojos. Maybe they didn't even charge you money in the dojo. The dojo was sponsored by the aristocrat. Well, of course, they're going to give the aristocrat's son, a higher position. And Takamatsu, I don't get that position. Well, no. Very complex, complicated relationships, old battlers who were skilled with a bow or with their bare hands, now outvoted. No, we just teach kids how to shoot guns and teach them how to march in formation to where they are going to shoot the guns, and we sure don't want them asking questions. Versus the old battler that hired on as a security guard in the Takamatsu family. He's found a kid who's interested in this stuff. Are you sure, kid? You sure you want to learn this stuff? I mean, it's tough, it's brutal. And I mean, it was brutal. That's how they train. You sure, kid, you want to learn this? Yeah, uncle, I do want to learn it. All right, here's your first lesson. Boom! What? Yeah, just because I said you should trust me, maybe don't trust me. Keep your distance. You're never going to forget that, are you? No. Wild, crazy things happened. Lineages. I remember in 1982, Hatsumi Sensei was staying at my house in Ohio, and Rumi and I were asking a lot of questions, and he finally said, I don't know the answer to all those questions. Men my age learned not to ask questions of the previous generation.
Yeah.
I mean, Japanese did unconscionable things to the Chinese and the Koreans, just horrifying. And the people who survived that in the modern age, when they realized the Japanese government was lying to them, and they were just terribly angered, embarrassed. They just didn't want to talk about that part of their life. So Hatsumi Sensei said, there are things about Takamatsu I just don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. And Takamatsu was handed off. I mean, this was common in Japan, where a child would be given from their parents to somebody else to raise who they needed a child, and these parents had lots of children, and that didn't happen in America, but it did in Japan. So we refer back to this lineage. How did you get to become the headmaster of this martial tradition? Well, I just inherited it. It'd be like, I don't know, some guy today in modern America, he's a wizard at repairing 1960s cars. What? No, there's a big demand for people with 1960s cars, collectors. They want to fix these cars. Kids been working on these cars forever. It's just sort of natural. You take over, you have a diploma. You are now the headmaster of the 1960s car repair. No, Jesus, nothing like it. You just take over, and I'm getting old, my eyes are getting bad. all of these things are organic. They're real. They're human. They're Japanese with a heavy influence of Chinese. And so now that I call them brittle academics. Well, I can't find any volume that talks about a ninja fighting art. So obviously you just made that up. Okay, hotshot. You find me a volume talking about ninja sexual practices. Oh, you can't find that either? So that means they're not having sex?
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
you stupid idiot.
Yeah.
But I understand that's how academics work. If you can't cite it, it doesn't exist. And so I think some of these brittle academics, and they get to take a stand.
Sure, and there's a market. There's an entire market
There's an entire
in
market
tearing people down.
in tearing people down and denying this stuff. And there were no ninja. They were just low-level samurai who spied. And there's a desire to tear down and replace anything that is inspiring. And I think these people are very sad, but they get mileage out of it.
I've even heard people say he made it up, and I'm like, well, how would he know all these old Chinese kanji, and how would he know about Kukishin Ryu and their military terms of the sea when he wasn't a seaman? It's impossible that he made this stuff up. It's absolutely impossible. No man could have traveled like that. You know what I mean? He would have to be Shakespeare or something. You can't. He was a more simple man. And how many times did you mention that, people are handed scrolls on a deathbed or something? You're now the inheritor of this, and go research what you can. But there's no scrolls left. They were burned in the fire 200 years ago. But to say that he made it up, it's like no human is that intelligent to make up 200 kata here and 500 here. And let's give him all these names of places I've never been. It's impossible. But again, it's very easy to write, didn't exist, you're a claimant, because I can sell a lot of books, and you have to have, I think, a larger perspective of seeing the culture itself and how these things come into play, or you're just getting lost.
Well, yeah, and there's a new generation of scholars now that the internet is so far-reaching. The Japanese version of Library of Congress has all this stuff digitalized now. And they're going back and finding. So my friend Sean Askew has done a lot of research. And for years, people criticized the Shinryuken Toda. There's no record of Shinryuken Toda. Well, we find out that Shinryuken may have been adopted name from what his real name was, because he was a sword teacher for the shogunate. Yeah. And then the Japanese military-industrial complex grabbed the emperor and moved them against the shogunate. And, people were killed. Routinely just killed for political reasons back in that era of Japan. So he needed to disappear. Of course he's going to change his name. Even today, among artists and some martial artists, they'll have several different names. Hatsumi was Byakuryu-o, and then he was Tetsuzan, and
you got Kin Ryu, the Golden Dragon.
Well, yeah, but I've kept that.
Yeah.
But even Masaaki was originally Yoshiaki Hatsumi, and Takamatsu told him, well, too many Yoshis that had bad luck, so you can pronounce it Masa. That's a Japanese thing where you change your names. It's not in America. Of course the guy changed his name, and so this friend of mine is able to trace that back and show that, actually these were the falconers who worked for the shogun. Wait a minute. The Okuden, Secret Teachings of the Gyoko Ryu, has all of these kata, shun-u, falcon foot, all these falcon this is way before anybody discovered this falcon connection. Yeah. So you're thinking that these guys just made this stuff up? How silly. How absolutely silly.